Thank you, Danielle. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the Geospatial Professional Network webinar. It's the leadership webinar for building capacity through professional development. We have a power-packed lineup for you today with great and talented panels. They're going to talk to you about how to develop from a GIS technician to a leader in your career. My name is Trisha Brush. I am your moderator today. I come to you from Louisville, Kentucky. I am the Logic Director. Logic stands for Louisville Jefferson County Information Consortium. And I'm also proud to be the chair of the Professional Education Committee too here at GPN. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. I did want to mention to you, we did have Megan Compton needed to send her regrets. She couldn't make it today. She has a brand new job with USGS, and she has a very important meeting that she's running. She hopes to join us in the future, so we look forward to that. But we do have with us today, we have Carl Zimmerman. He's the geospatial manager and scientist from the state of Connecticut. Welcome, Carl. We have Isabella Miller. She's the Director of Information Technology from Greater Salt Lake Municipal Services District. We're happy to have you, Isabella. Welcome. We have Dina Cross. She's the Principal Consultant from the Esri Professional Services. Great to see you, Dina. And then from Idaho, we have Wilma Robertson. She's the Geographic Information Officer and Data Analytics Manager for Idaho. Welcome, Wilma. Happy to have Liz Parrish on board with us she's a Senior Manager of Geospatial Analytics and Insights at HEB, coming to us from Texas. And then Paul Giroux, Information Officer, Innovation, Business, and Location Intelligence. He's with the Greater Sudbury Utilities, coming to us from Canada. Happy to have that great lineup with us. We are introducing this leadership series, and this is one of 6 modules that we're wanting to bring to you. So today you're going to hear about transitioning from a GIS technician to a leader. We also want to bring to you building successful teams, as well as building organizational capacity, change management and issue resolution, ethics and certification, as well as radical candor in the workplace. Danielle, this may be a good point to go ahead and put that poll out for everyone so they can tell us what would be the next module they'd be interested in hearing us present to them.
Give me one.
Okay, looks like this poll is actually about if you become a manager today, what would you change?
Did it put the right one up there? I'm sorry.
That's okay. We can do this one. Let's do it.
It should say, what are the major gaps in leadership? Is that the one that is?
This is Leadership Webinar Poll 3.
Oh,
We could,
okay.
I'd say
We'll do
just
that
let
one.
everyone.
I apologize.
That's okay. No problem at all. So go ahead and vote. We'd love to hear from you. Well, as you're voting, I'm going to go ahead and continue. Leadership is about influence. In my opinion, influence is probably our strongest muscle that we have on a daily basis. I know for me, I have to influence my team to get their work done on time. Not too much, not too hard though. We have peers we're influencing. Hey, you need to accept GIS. Let's move it into your workflow. The superiors, I need one more person. Well, actually I need 2, but I just need 1 for now. Your organization, every workflow should have GIS in it. Let's get this done. And then a society, just like GPN. How are you using your influence to influence what's happening here at GPN? Now, the studies have shown that characteristics that are admired of leaders are in the order of importance shown here. Can you find yourself in these characteristics? Honest, forward-looking, inspiring, competent, intelligent, broad-minded, fair-minded, dependable, straightforward, determined, courageous, supportive, cooperative, ambitious, caring, and loyal. I know I definitely have some of those characteristics, and I believe you're going to see and hear some of those characteristics come out as the panel presents their journeys to leadership. Now, just to give you kind of the lay of the land for this webinar, we are going to take an hour. Every panelist gets 10 minutes, and they're going to share their journey with you. You'll hear about their transition to leadership, the balancing of technology versus strategy, professional development, organizational capacity, challenges and rewards of leadership, lessons learned, and forward thinking. So once we have that full hour of the panelists, we're going to give you an hour to ask questions and get answers. So I want to make sure that you put all of your questions. I believe, Danielle, just checking in with you. Did we want them to put those in the chat, or did you want them to put that in the Q&A?
Q&A will capture it, so if they're able to, we encourage that, but we can also watch the chat and I can help monitor that for our Q&A session.
Okay, excellent. Well, so throw it into Q&A, or we're monitoring the chat, and we'd love to hear from you. You get a whole hour to question these leaders and learn from them and from their successes and maybe some failures. But we look forward to hearing from everyone on the panel. Just a reminder to the panel, we have 10 minutes. I'm going to turn my camera off. I'll turn it back on at 2 minutes, which kind of means it's time to wrap up. So just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page today. All right. Well, kicking us off, moving into the presentation portion of our webinar, we're going to hear first from Carl Zimmerman, the geospatial manager and scientist from the state of Connecticut. Welcome, Carl.
Thank you. All right. Host isn't allowing. I need to be unshared here.
Trisha, you have to stop sharing yours.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I first have to take one of the leadership qualities and admit that my slide deck was not supposed to be seen today, but because of a quirk in my Zoom application, I am showing you the raw slides underneath. My apologies. Hopefully this will not deter too much from the conversation here. I'm going to start with my journey to leadership. It's a windy road. There are other styles of leadership that are maybe more linear. Mine is not. I think that tells a different story than you may hear about some people. And for those people who've experienced failure or have had a life path that has gone multiple directions, you may have a model for going forward in the geospatial realm. So first of all, I'm a GIS coordinator at the state of Connecticut, and my other major role, which is a new one, is I just got appointed to the National Geospatial Advisory Committee, which is a national policy committee. So there are different types of leadership, and the ones I'll be talking about today involve introversion and a way forward that is maybe not as linear as others. As a kid, I was someone who loved being outdoors. I loved science, and I spent a lot of time by myself. I was an introvert. I read a lot, but I was not very good at school. In fact, you'll find out that in college I flunked out twice. Even though I was reading, it was very hard for me to get through language classes. So The foreign language classes, and I took many of them, were all ended in a flaming pile of disaster. So in my early 20s, I learned that I was a dyslexic. Um, the woman who tested me, who was a professional, told me that I should not even pass high school. That was hard to take, but I went and found someone who could help me. There was a woman at the University of Michigan who was a specialist in this. This was before dyslexia was widely discussed. And she taught me how to slow down and figure out what I was good at and what I was bad at. So with that start, I have had completed 3 degrees, a geology degree from Michigan, a landscape architecture degree, and then a PhD in GIS and remote sensing. Um, the thing I learned though that was that it required a lot of energy and time uh, for me to get through school. So when I went into school, I knew that I would have to brute force things. Things like physics and calculus were very hard for me. So I basically just had to outlearn and out work other people to get very mediocre grades. It turns out, though, that each level I went up, I became a better student. And that's because I'm good at interdisciplinary problem solving and analytic work. So I was very bad at memorization, but very good at the GIS-like interdisciplinary work. I got a landscape architecture degree, and this was very enjoyable for me. It was holistic, interdisciplinary, and generalist. I practiced for several years. Doing different kinds of land development. And the problem was that as I did projects, I'd look across the street or across the stream and say, why aren't we talking about the other problem? But because landscape architecture was always within that property line or the project line, you couldn't address the surrounding issues. So I was always frustrated by that, to the point where I decided that I needed to learn how to deal with the full picture problem. Um, the landscape architecture piece was very good because it was about being a generalist, and I'm not, always been as I call it, unrelenting generalist. Um, but it didn't go beyond the edge of the property. So this PhD in GIS remote sensing was a way to get beyond and see the whole picture in a large scale. So out of this, the pain and trial of getting through my education, I encourage all of you to be persistent, keep trying, keep learning, and then just remember, and this is always a lesson I think for everyone, you need to be good at some things, but you don't need to be good at everything. Improve the things you're bad at and enhance the things you're good at. And that's a very good path forward in life. All right, next slide. Um, so I got this PhD in GIS, and it was already fairly late in my career. I'd already done other things like be a geologist and landscape architect. So some of the things I've done, I taught at Tufts and Coast Guard. I've worked in a regional planning agency where I focused on transportation and environmental planning. I was a director of Geospatial Data Group and the Property and Taxation Department of Finance in New York City. That was the first of its kind. And now I am coordinator of the new Connecticut GIS office doing imagery and strategic planning work. So the thing I want you to know here is that you carry your experiences forward. So even though early in my career was difficult, that tenacity I learned and those generalized topics I could carry into my new fields. And the nice thing about having a GIS and remote sensing background as a generalist it's allowed me to have a flexible career. I've always gotten bored quickly. So the GIS and remote sensing background allows you to learn new domains as you go forward and be flexible. So you can jump in and out of academia, out of nonprofits and for profits, and into different levels of government. All right. So this was supposed to be about this webinar is supposed to be about leadership, and I will tell you, and again, this is about the nonlinear path. I am a reluctant leader. I'm an introvert and someone who is not that social. And some of you who are in GIS and remote sensing are very good at number crunching. You're very good at visualizations. You're very good at programming. You have spatial interests, but maybe you don't really like people that much. Well, you can still become involved as a leader, and but not do it in the same ways that some of the extroverts do. Um, I got my start because I would have a problem, and then I would realize as I was trying to solve a problem that I was missing a stakeholder or user or data type in that system. And then I would say, how do I solve that problem? And I realized I had to go out into the user community and find out what they were doing so that we could solve the problem as a system. And so I think a really great way to get involved in leadership is to think about what problems you need to be solved in your system of interest, and then go to the users and stakeholders in that system of interest and ask them what can be done to improve it. So I'm using this. I think everyone should use this conceptual model idea. Conceptual model is a system of components. It could be phenomena, data, or problems, all interlinked. Think of a spider web. And look for the part of the system that's not working. And that's where people who are introverts and others can enter the system and try to provide leadership and direction. Okay. So if you're an introvert, there are a lot of ways you can participate as a leader. You can do things like write reports, make story maps. Uh, you can attend meetings and listen. You can chair meetings with active listening. Um, Recently, I was appointed to the National Geospatial Advisory Committee, and that is a national advisory committee for the federal government. I'm very excited to be participating in it. But the way I got that opportunity was I was talking to a gentleman at one of the national geospatial organizations, and he quietly mentioned, "Oh, Carl, we have a opening for the NGAC. Do you know anyone who might be interested?" And I was like, well, I'm kind of interested in this. I want to be involved in national policy. And so one person conversation, I sent them my email. They went ahead and moved it ahead. And it turned out that that simple conversation got me an opportunity to work on the national level in policy. Now, COGO, which is another national geospatial organization, uh, does a national data assessment of the NSDI, which many of you know is our data policy. And I just listened in on one of those meetings, and they said, "Oh, Carl, we are looking for a project manager for this assessment research project. Do you know anyone?" And I said, "Well, right now, at the time I wasn't working. That would be a nice thing to do and sit in and use my research background." And I participated in that, and we just came out with that document recently. And then finally, when I at Connecticut, we had never had a geospatial strategic plan, and it came up that how are we going to do this? They were thinking about going out to a contractor. I said, why don't you let me give it a shot? And so I put together a strategic plan, the first of its kind in Connecticut. So some of these things involved active participation with stakeholders, but a lot of it is analysis work, conceptualization work, and these are the kind of places that introverts can participate in leadership. And finally, I want to just leave with a few items on my leadership philosophy. First thing is that when you have staff, I think it's critical that you have good work habits and open communication. You should show people how you want them to work. Um, I think the next thing is that GIS and remote sensing and geospatial are absolutely professions where you gain by sharing your knowledge freely with other people. And so I would encourage all of you to give your time and knowledge to people, and then a little bit of the karma comes back to you. So if you give your time out to others, time will come to you. Give your knowledge, help people, and good things happen in organizations with that. Um, Another thing is to trust your staff. GIS is a wide open field. Um, it's an odd field of autodidactics, meaning you have to keep learning about new data sets, new data types, new applications, new software. You have to have your staff learn them. Everyone needs to figure out what you do and don't know. All these things empower your staff to get better and solve problems and grow. And you want in your organization to have raise the boat for everyone because it is a field that changes rapidly, and you need people who are motivated and self-motivated to learn. And finally, uh, give your staff all the tools they need to be successful. That means the tools, the software, the hardware, the training, and the empowerment to make mistakes. Because as in a learning profession like this, you need to have those opportunities to make mistakes, to learn and move forward. And with that, I will pass it back to Tricia, who will pass it on to the next presenter.
Thank you, Carl. Let's all give Carl a virtual round of applause. All right. Great job.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Isabella Miller. She's the Director of Information Technology from Greater Salt Lake Municipal Services District, coming to us from Salt Lake City, Utah. Welcome, Isabella.
Thank you, Tricia. Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. Let me share the screen very quickly. And as I'm doing it, I hope you can see it. My name is Isabella Miller. I am a Director of Information Technology here at the MSD, as we call it for short. But obviously, that wasn't the beginning of my career, right? I started as I got my degree in geography back in Poland, where I am originally from, over about 30 years ago. And then 20 something years ago, I decided to pack my bags and move to the States and see what I can accomplish here on this part of the world. With my degree of geography in my pocket, I decided it would be great to start working and start putting the degree in place in Salt Lake City. So at that time, my English wasn't as great as is today. I didn't know a lot about Esri and its products because Poland was a little bit behind the curve on that. But I learned pretty quick. I was determined. Perseverance is one of my biggest strengths, and so I pulled up my sleeves and I went to work. And over the time in my career, from the internship through the technician and specialist and analyst, I ended up in wanting more. And the reason why I wanted more is because I had a vision, and we all have those who inspire to be leaders. You have the drive that pulls you into that leadership, right? So for me, is the vision of the impact I could make based on the knowledge I acquired over time, based on the knowledge of the software and the Esri tools that I had, then I could actually take that information and I can transform that into what the possibilities were by what were in this organization at this time. So at this time, I worked for Salt Lake County here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I saw there was a lot of holes in the way how we use GIS. And as I said, the knowledge I gathered over the years, it allowed me to develop the vision, the impact I could make when I decided to go into that leadership. So that was the critical point in my career when I said, if I want to make an impact, what do I have to do to get me there? And so here are some steps that I personally took. So vision, I knew what I wanted to accomplish, right? I knew that I want to take the software and I want to show it to everyone in the organization what is capable of and how great the data is. We always say we are dirty rich, information poor, because we don't take that data and we don't share that. Sometimes we don't know what tools to use. So that was my role. That was my vision. Once I understood that and I had a clear vision of what it is, then my next step is, okay, how I'm going to campaign myself into that position. What do I need to do to get people to know me? So I started talking to the key individuals in the organization who I knew could help me to to get on that right path, asking questions. What do I have to do? What filling the knowledge gap, right? What degree do I have to get me in the leadership? Because what I heard the most of from others individuals, like, well, you don't have any management experience. You're not a supervisor. You need to have at least some experience. It's like, okay, well, I am not in the position to do that. What else can I do? And one of the recommendation is to go back to college and get Master of Public Administration, then automatically give me some years of experience. So I did that. So I dedicated 3 years of my life. I worked and I raised family. I got my MPA, signed up for the leadership training, read the books on leadership, whatever that was necessary, whatever the people told me, this is what I would recommend for you to do. I went ahead and I did it. So perseverance, let's always go back to that. And then being on the lookout for the opportunities, right? So you always ask around, you check the website, you go to the events. Like we have multiple events here in Salt Lake Valley, and you talk to people, you go to the conferences, and you approach people. Even like we are, like Carl said, most of us are introverts, so it takes a lot to get out of our skin, out of our own way, and basically say, hey, I am looking into leadership in GIS and the geospatial industry. If you know someone, please let me know. So this is the framework I use to move myself from GIS intern to where the position I am in today. But the framework and following is the easy part. Sticking to it and actually make it happen, and getting out of your own way and your inner voice who's telling you, he might be telling you, hey, maybe you're not good enough. Your accent is actually not understood. So maybe you shouldn't be trying to go there. This is all BS. Let's be honest, right? Get out of your own way. Don't quit just because you are different. This is what makes you special, because you are different. You have that skill set. Put it to work. Don't give up. Okay, let me move on to some challenging and rewarding aspects now. Being in a leadership position for a few years, from GIS manager to business systems manager to technology manager to now the IT director, is there is a misconception then, and I had that too. When I became the leader, it was, I still could do the mapping and the geo and playing with the data and create the beautiful maps, but the managing just happened by itself. Just, the team is great. They can figure out how to manage themselves. I don't really have to be involved. I can still be technical. Well, that didn't work very well for very long, honestly, because what I had to do, I had to let go of being a doer. I had to put the trust in my team, because I hired them, right? And I hired them on the principle that they know how to do their job, because they proved themselves to me and the rest of my team, or the hiring team. So I just needed to let it go. And being a control freak, when you have to have your hands in everything, it was the hardest part, the most challenging part of my leadership journey. Stepping back and trusting that they know how to do the job. It might be different the way how I do it, but it still gives the same result. Yes, they need help, they need guidance, right? So if you remember the slide that Tricia showed before, aspiring, forward-looking, supportive, those are things that I bring to the team most of the time. And then I'm stepping away. I'm letting them run with it. And they know I trust them, so they can then flourish, because they know I have their back. Okay, so that's one of the things. So letting go of the mindset, changing the way how I lead. So kind of more changing the mindset from look how good I am, how my skill set, my JS skill set is so awesome, to look how great my team is, right? Because in the end, we all benefit from it. The organization benefits from it. Okay, so let me see what else I have here. Rewards, oh my gosh. teaching, I think, is the biggest reward. Passing my knowledge, passing my vision to them, getting their buy-in, and something that I started doing recently after working with my mentor. He said, you can even give them a fish, or give them the fishing rod and teach them how to fish. And it's like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Rather than telling people how to solve the problems, because we are all solution people, right? That's our job. We are solution providers. So I had to now, being in this, years in my leadership career, I'm still learning. I had to, rather than giving the fish, giving a fishing rod, is like, what would you do? So seeing them grow, showing people that GIS is not a silo system. GIS connects to so many other business systems, because most of the information that we do is geospatial. We just don't think this way. Okay, so and there are many other rewards. I won't bore you with it. You can contact me and we can talk about it. What would I have done differently? And I know I see Trisha, so I probably have a minute left. The biggest lesson that I learned is when I realized that my ego and politics got in the way of my mission, my purpose, and my vision. When I noticed when my ego started showing up and saying, hey, this is my project, I should be doing it, I should be presenting it, I should be managing, to letting it go and letting somebody else take the kudos for it. It was the biggest lesson that I learned, because in the end, I am not doing this to show how great I am. I'm doing this because I have a vision. And as long as that vision is implemented, I don't care who gets the credit. And what I want to leave you with is what Harry Truman said. It's amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit. Thank you all.
Great job. Let's give Isabella some love. Give her some virtual love, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Now, we've heard from two great leaders and their trials and tribulations. We heard mental toughness. We heard about introverts. We heard about courage and perseverance. That's what leaders are made of. And you're in the right place if you want to learn about being a leader. Thank you, Carl and Isabella. Since we've had two panelists, maybe it's time for another poll before we introduce our next panelist up. Danielle, do we have another poll for the audience?
Yep.
All right.
Let's see if I can get it to work.
All right. Poll 2. Do you have an interest in leading a team? You've heard a lot about leading a team or being part of a team. We'll hear more for sure the next 4 panelists, but it's not as easy as I think people think it is. Sometimes everybody thinks the technical part's the hardest. The people part can be kind of tough too. All right. Well, go ahead and take your poll. And we're going to get ready to introduce Dina Cross. She's the principal consultant for Esri Professional Services, coming to us from Washington, D.C.
I'm
Or
actually,
are you in Georgia?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, sorry about
Yep,
that.
yeah,
All
East
right.
Coaster. Thank you, and it's great to be here with everyone today, and very difficult to follow Carl and Isabella. I enjoy both of them. And as you can see, people have different styles of leadership. So that's going to be somewhat the theme of my conversation today. Again, my name's Dina Cross with Esri. I'm here today because I really believe in the importance of leadership and technology, and love to share my experiences if they can be helpful to others. As a matter of background, I would be a great friend of you, Carl. I was part of, extremely interested in math and science, been called a nerd before at an early age. And I loved maps. Got into pre-internet, poring over National Geographic books, even the set of encyclopedias in our home growing up. I went on to get a degree in engineering, and after probably close to a decade or so as an engineer, and I got into management. And at that time, I went back to school to pursue my MBA to learn. Isabella is exactly right. In the next slide, I'll emphasize a few organizations I've worked for. But like many panelists, I've been fortunate in my technology career, again, to advance like from team lead to manager, and eventually to a director in a VP role. And my last role prior to joining Esri was with the illustrious title as a deputy CIO. I'm now at Esri, again, doing my life's work. I view my role as a principal consultant kind of as a culmination of all of my experiences. Here I work on in an emerging technology team within Esri's professional services. And I also have the privilege of working internationally as I head up the executive consulting community. So here's the slide of logos. As you can see, I've worked across industries and sectors, starting with my first job out of college as a shuttle engineer with NASA. From there, I kind of moved into the corporate world, had a long period with IBM, and to other companies like Sage, Home Depot, as well as General Electric. It was at GE Energy that I saw the power of incorporating GIS into the work that we were doing with utilities and renewable energy. We were trying to figure all that out. But and then, move from there into local government, heading up enterprise systems, including a GIS team of 18 people. When I give that number, several people went, "Oh, in my dreams, I'd love to have that size of team." So we were very fortunate as a large government organization. So what did I learn along the way? First of all, like Carl and Isabella, you got to know yourself and focus on the unique individual that I provided. It was only when I was true to myself and not trying to, be someone else or emulate my management exactly that I was tapped for leadership roles. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a little bit of a secret type A. Now there's a concept, if you've heard of it, a happy warrior. It's someone who maybe their natural style is like Liz and others on the call, Wilma, very friendly, cheerful, but one who can make work happen through the power of teamwork when you're in leadership. And then part of the finding my voice and thriving was to find that right fit in culture and in the team and later in leadership roles. Really to contribute to that team culture was where I thrived and where I was the best. And in my current role, I love it. I provide executive consulting and one-on-one coaching to guide others to find their voice and enhance their influence in their leadership roles. From the many moves, all the logos and transitions, and a lot of change in my career. We're talking early days of computer when I got started. I've had the opportunity and growth a lot of times from being flexible and open along the way, trying new things, and not everything worked out. I joined 2 different startups, both neither of which really made it. One was acquired and the other shut down. So you learn through that. It's painful to go through those experiences. So, and I think too, like, teaching others, like Isabella said, that next generation of professionals, and letting those professionals do what they do well is extremely important. Career advice, going back to what I've learned. Of course, first of all, find your passion. Life's too short to stay in something that you hate doing day after day. It's not that you'll love every aspect of your job, but you have just, really, really find something that brings joy to your heart and you look forward to doing every day. Of course, working hard, but also working smart, really focusing on what's important. It's very difficult when GIS programs miss the mark and don't quite deliver to the business what they feel is the most important. So it just, but when you nail it, you know it, it can be one of those amazing impact, that app that just takes off, or the map that drives leadership decision-making. I mean, it's so rewarding when you find it. Continue to learn and cultivate work friends along the way. It's really, really important to find your journey. I often laugh. I'm still friends, okay, dating myself. We had a Y2K party way back in the day. So those friends are still friends now. So really build your friendship base along the way. They stay with you. That's your network. They keep their ears and eyes open for you along the way. Become that lifelong learner. Continue to take classes, continue to learn, continue to be curious, ask questions. I know there are technologists within Esri who are way smarter than me, but I have to ask the right questions in my own way to understand. So just be sure to continue to learn. And something I ran across recently, I really, really like. And speaking of mapping, part of our journey is, I like to envision it as a map. And you can design your journey. Think about where you want to be. It's your heart's passion. Like, I can see myself doing that. I can see myself leading a team. I can see myself setting standards like Carl does. But versus two other extremes, and this is from a recent article I read. One is drifting. You can stay in a position too long. You can be in the wrong job, kind of know it, doing, just drifting or being too lax about it. On the other hand, you can be driving, you can be too rigid. Like, I want to make manager by the time I'm 30 years old, or I'm going to be devastated or disappointed. So just really, as I like to think of it, design your journey, but be flexible, be open. Sometimes, again, it's those friendships who can help you along the way, and that trusted friend you can bounce things off of, and not necessarily chasing the title. As we go into questions, right now, I don't have a manager's title. I'm a consultant. I don't have staff reporting to me. So be very aware that leadership doesn't necessarily mean a title. It doesn't necessarily mean having direct reports or managers who report to you. And a final piece of advice, if you haven't done this, is to create a personal charter. Think through what that means to you, what's important, what do you want to be known for, and look that up. And then finally, Trish, I just love that you keep going back to this slide. When I think through that, some of these are table stakes. This is just a base level. You need to be honest. You have to be competent in your work. Part of what I encourage people to do is to get out of that tactical mindset to be more strategic, forward-looking, as you can see here in the green. But was something I really like, and it's side by side. This secret type A, or the friendly, caring warrior, is both ambitious and caring. And I love it that these are side by side with 21%. So with that, back to you.
All right, thank you, Dina. That was very insightful. Oops. Very insightful. Please give Dina some love, give her some virtual love. Really loved hearing about, you told us what happy warrior. I love that. That sounds, I think I might fit under that, as well as, just team and how well you worked and really thrived in it in a team environment, and then, lead from where you are. I think that's something that that I know we talked about when we were preparing for this webinar is you don't have to have a title to lead. Just lead where you are. And that kind of goes back to the piece on influence. Are you an influencer? Can you influence? All right. Thank you, Dina. Next up, we have Wilma Robertson. She's the Geographic Information Officer and Data Analytics Manager for the state of Idaho. Welcome, Wilma. Happy to have you.
All right, glad to be here. Okay, let me try sharing. There we go. And I'm gonna pick the screen right here, so you'll see yourself for a second here, and then I'll just bring up the presentation. All right. All right, come on. Okay, can I confirm everybody can see my slides now? Is it good?
It looks great.
All righty, well, let's get started. This is a tough crowd to follow here. But let me tell you a little bit about my background and how I got to where I was. So I can identify with Isabella coming from a different country. I like to tell people that it's so much easier to collect stamps than it is to collect nationalities and passports. But I was born and raised in the Netherlands, and you can see the map in the distance right there. I actually grew up right around the letter D in background. And the picture in the top right is a steam locomotive that's, just still running for tourists, not too far from where I grew up. I am also Canadian, and I am a US citizen. And as you can tell, I also have an accent. So I think I must have run into some of the same problems that Isabella has run into, although I think sometimes it is an advantage because people do remember you, because they remember the accent. So while in the Netherlands, I received a master's degree in agriculture and environmental sciences in a place called Wageningen, which I highlighted on the map here, which is not quite GIS, but I still ended up there. And so I guess the truth is that you can make a plan. The plan was for me to graduate, stay in the Netherlands, marry a Dutch guy, and just live there forever. Was planning to do a PhD there and work on crop protection, which was sort of the main area of study. And then before you know it, you take a right turn, you just do an internship, you meet a Canadian, and before you know it, you just live in Canada and you're doing something completely different, which turned out to be a good thing, but it does tell you that you need to be flexible, and it's great to plan, but be open that things can just drastically change, and then just make the best out of that. And so my early career, I followed my husband to Canada. So we lived in Vancouver, British Columbia. And when you think about like your first couple of jobs, you just don't know where you're going to end up. And I'm guessing that a lot of you are in different stages of your career. Although I do think most of you have already found your way into GIS. And that might just be the career where you stay, or you might just along the way find something else that grabs your passion and you move into that. Again, be flexible. Although one of my first jobs here, well, I used to clean high schools, so you got to start somewhere. And then I worked as a crop consultant and spent my summers crawling around potato fields looking for insects and diseases and writing out prescriptions for the growers there. The point is regardless of which job I was in, each job gives you the opportunity to learn something new, learn something about yourself, and to grow as a person. And at the same time, just learn more about the world, how things work, how people operate, what makes people tick. And so you learn and grow, and then another opportunity will come along. And in my case, this turned out to be an opportunity to do mapping in the winter. So this was 1994, where I had to rent a Mac computer, and I don't even recall the name of the GIS software, but I was digitizing, agricultural fields and ditches and roads and all that good stuff. So that's how I got my start. But I learned, I growed, and then saw another opportunity. So in 2000, moved to Idaho, followed my husband. Um, and I could not work at the time because I was by that time Canadian. So had my family when they were really little. I had more time to look after them. Started taking classes. One of them being this introduction to GIS. And since I had done a little bit while I was still in Canada, it wasn't really quite new and strange to me. Interesting was that right in the middle of taking the introduction class, I was approached to please teach it the next semester. And so since I'm also an introvert and I think a lot of the self-doubt that some of you may have about, do I deserve this? Am I really here? Like, can I do this? I did say yes and took on the role and ended up teaching 9 semesters of GIS. Also, I worked for our water resources department and I was the technical steward for the National Hydrography dataset. And so this might just sound familiar as a job where your role is to maintain one database. And I spent a lot of my days, drawing canals and rivers on aerial imagery. And at times you'd be drawing a river and then you see a car in the middle of the river and then you're like, oh shoot, that was a road or something is wrong here. Anyway, it might seem monotone, but there's a lot of value in just going through those jobs in your early career because again, you're learning a lot about the different aspects of GIS. You learn what you like, you learn what you don't like, you learn what works, you learn what does not work, and it prepares you for your next opportunity. So when that opportunity came along, you seize it. And in my case, this was a job with the Idaho State Tax Commission. And I would say that this was a job that really suited my personality in the sense that it was my job to help all 44 counties in Idaho map their parcels. And so from the state level, I would provide education to people. Anytime they had a question about GIS, they would call me. And it just felt so good to, they would be stuck and then you'd spend half an hour with them and now they're unstuck and they're going and they're just so happy and excited and they're moving along. And I found out I really, really like helping people. And also you start to see the vision of how much you can do. You can do with the data, how much you can do with the analysis tool, and how you can help people save time. You can help them create better products. And I think a big lesson that I learned there is the importance of trust. And you know, helping people like you when you're helping them, but make friends and build relationships and then get them to the next stage. So if they're planning something, you have the opportunity to maybe suggest a way to do it better, but because you have that history with them, it really really helps, because they trust you to advise them something good and they're willing to try it, and then you just build it from there, and that is so incredibly rewarding. um, and so I think I'm getting closer to leadership because in that role, I was not just drawing lines on a map, I was helping other people. And even though I was not their boss, you're still trying to instill, you're mentoring them and you're trying to really make their work and their data better. So that was a really important step, which was around the same time that I joined our Geospatial Council. I did that in 2013. And so one of the big things, the big goals of this council is to share data. Basically, we just want to have authoritative data that's easy to find. We can work together on it, identify who creates it, identify who's using it. And that vision really, really inspired me at the time, and it still inspires me. Because if it's easy to get good data, you can spend all your time actually using that data and make really good decisions. So at that time, I ended up chairing the council and basically slowly getting into the leadership part. So then in 2020, and I got more involved, and I was frustrated by the lack of progress that we had. And eventually, it's been, I think, 30 years in the making. We did release the Idaho map, and it does have a whole bunch of different layers on it. So I took the job at the Idaho Office of Information Technology because that's where the Geographic Information Officer lives. And I thought I would have more time and more influence on bringing that vision to life. A real boost was the Next Generation 911 project. And I had the chance to do some executive coaching with Dina, which made a huge difference. So Esri came out to basically help us or help me get started on this project. And one of the first things they observed is you need to take more of a leadership role. You need to be more assertive. You need to just go out there and go like, okay, I am Wilma, I'm leading this, and you really, I deserve to be listened to. So Dina was great in helping me build a charter for what I was doing, just build a charter for my team. And so now I'm actually in a really interesting role where, as part of the chief data officer, I just work with state agencies, their data, the GIO, I'm working with federal, local, tribal, different agencies. But the kicker is that the the possibilities are just mind blowing. I mean, this ranges from public safety. I want to do indoor mapping in schools because it will help again with public safety. It will help identify those schools that maybe need more resources so they can be, fixed up. There's just so many resources. And you just find that I cannot do everything alone. And so for me to fulfill that vision, I need to sell that vision and find people that I can empower to work with me to reach that vision. And I think that's where my main motivation comes from. It was never really my goal to, have so many people working for me. I have 12 at the moment. It's just I want to reach that vision, and how can I get there? And Trish, do I still have 30 seconds to put one more vision in people's heads?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I picture myself in a hamster ball. And so that's my sphere of influence. This might sound familiar because you're like, I want to get to that place, but it's outside my little hamster ball, and I'm just a little hamster in this ball. And so instead of going like, oh, wow, that's just the world, you can push against one side of your hamster ball and get it rolling in the right direction. And along the way, you can just plant little seeds, which are ideas, and they may not fruit or come to fruition right now, but sometimes you'll be surprised when a year or 2 years later, they come back to you and it's the right time to get started. So that's my take on it. So let me just stop sharing, and hopefully that was helpful.
Absolutely. That was fabulous. I loved the flexibility is one of the biggest things that it's like a tree. If you aren't flexible in the wind, then you'll break. So I think that's great as well. Say yes to everything. You were like, say yes. All those jobs help you. And the trust piece is super key, and being assertive, which is tough sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
all great
Yes.
points. Well done. Thank you, Wilma. Give her some love, virtual love, please. All right. And so we've heard from two other panelists. We're getting ready to hear from our next panelist, but I think it might be time for another poll. If we could, Danielle, go ahead and all right. What are the major gaps in leadership that you observe within your organization? All right, please go ahead and answer the poll for us. Excuse me. And let's go ahead and introduce our next panelist up. We're happy to have Liz Parrish with us today, Senior Manager of Geospatial Analytics and Insights at HEB, coming to us from Texas. Take it away, Liz.
Okay, let me hit the share button here, and there we go. All right. Thank you all so much for having me here today. as Tricia said, I'm Liz Parrish. I'm a senior manager of geospatial analytics and insights at HEB in Texas. For those of you who may not be familiar, HEB is the 5th largest private company in the United States. We operate only in Texas, and it is essentially we say it's a technology company that happens to sell groceries. We manufacture, have logistics and everything, but our footprint is over 358 stores, I think we're up to now, as a grocery retailer. So very large company. I want to say we have about 150,000 partners in the company now. So as you can imagine, GIS will be instrumental. However, it is still in its toddler phase. I won't say infancy any longer. We've now graduated to toddler stage. A little of my background, though, as you can see there, I have a number of credentials, but what I want everybody to take away from this is this did not happen overnight. This happened over a period of 20 years of, growing myself and my skills and my credentials throughout the industry. And my passions really are mentoring and coaching, leveraging business intelligence and geospatial to make an impact. And obviously, I am a perpetual student. I'm always evangelizing how GIS can be used in business. And when I say business, any industry, whether it's public, private, nonprofit, there is a use case and a value add to leverage GIS across the board. And I have only in recent years found that I have developed a passion for public speaking on leadership and on geospatial capabilities. I was definitely an introvert, but because I was friendly as a young person, I got voluntold by friends or teachers or whatever throughout life to be the designated speaker for a number of things. So over time, I've leaned into that, but it definitely was very uncomfortable for a long time that people said, oh, you can talk to anyone, you make friends easy, so you get to go be the speaker because they don't want to do it. So that's something that has evolved over many, many years of my life. And then I love, good wine, good food, good friends, and many of those have come from the GIS community. And then I have human children and a fur baby that are the reasons why I, want to be successful and, want to have a good life in home and in career. So, why leadership? Why did I choose the path of leadership? I realized at some point that I truly have a passion for people, and that's people on an individual level, but as well as people in groups and as an organization. I really want people to be successful and successful with GIS. I'm always looking for ways to positively impact the outcome and coach and mentor others so that they too can be successful. A little background in some of my work as I've transitioned. My first big GIS job did not come until my mid-30s. I had started working in banking, and then I worked in commercial real estate, and then I was going back to school thinking I was going to get an international business degree, happened to take an intro to GIS class right at the same time that I learned what GIS was, because in my commercial real estate world, I was doing GIS and didn't know it. I was using aerial imagery that I was having flown by helicopter for our commercial properties. And then I was using Adobe InDesign to overlay logos of locations and label streets and all kinds of things. I was using third-party systems like CoStar and others for traffic counts and things that you might be interested in real estate. So only through a joint venture that our company was doing, and I saw somebody else's maps from the other company, I said, hey, how are yours so much better than mine? I love this. This is fantastic. And they said, oh, it's GIS, and there's a software that does this. And right at that time, I had a credit I needed to fill in general ed social sciences. And I was able to take intro to GIS, and it was the pivotal point that changed kind of my life and career path. I fell in love with it after one class. I said, you know what? Everything that is so powerful about data and location can be done in this. And I saw that it didn't matter what industry I ever worked in, it was going to be a skill set that would add value, and I had growth potential. So I did pivot from other industries into GIS in my 30s. And then, if you can imagine, I'm in my mid 30s with a family, and I am now competing for entry-level jobs alongside 21-year-old new graduates, right? Who may have even had an internship. So fortunately, I was able to secure a GIS analyst role at a newly incorporated city, up where Dina is. It was in Johns Creek, Georgia, and it was a two-person team, a GIS manager, Nick O'Day, and myself as a GIS analyst. So that experience was really instrumental in understanding all the foundations, the learning by trial and error, understanding every single bit of what it goes into building a GIS, building not only a GIS department or a team, but building a GIS from every kind of data structure, the digitizing plats, figuring out, your data schemas and everything. And that really set me up. From there, I went to Esri and worked in technical support. And the thing that I will say about, some of these roles that I've had over time is once I was in tech support, it is not a glamorous job, y'all. If you've ever called tech support, it's really not a glamorous job. But I looked at it as an opportunity to really get good at technical. I am one of those people who I did not come out of the womb technical. I tend to be more of a language arts kind of person. I love the arts. I love reading. I love music. I do not think in ones and zeros, and did not come out thinking I was ever going to be able to code anything. And I still don't. I'm not a developer. But I knew that if I wanted to be successful, regardless of where I went later on, I needed a really strong technical foundation. So I used the opportunity, and this is something that I would recommend to other people. If there was something challenging, whether it was a new technology that was complex or a job that seemed like not really fun, pretty tedious, I would raise my hand and volunteer for it. I would take the work that other people didn't want. I would try to become an SME in something that was hard and complex. And it meant I had to work really hard at it, but that set me up for learning and connecting with other people and being able to then pass that knowledge on to other people as I've grown. So challenges in leadership really have been, I believe maybe it was Isabel that said this, moving from doing to leading, moving from having your hands in, under the hood, in the guts of the thing, and moving into thinking strategically, moving from worrying about the initial solution that is going to meet the challenges of today to looking at the challenges for the future and how do we, handle that. And then, business change management and communications, really learning the skills of communicating at various levels and translating the technical to the business, and really becoming an SME in your particular domain. If you're in public safety, become an expert in public safety. If you're in retail, become an expert in retail. Understand the business, and then you can translate and show the ROI and really get buy-in for geospatial capabilities. And then always, I know everybody has said this, enabling your team, coaching your team, giving them all the resources to continue to learn and grow. One thing about GIS, it is not stagnant. There are some technologies, for example, like networking, you've got routers and switches. I don't know how much that has actually evolved in the last 20 years, but I would guess that the change in the geospatial technology and capabilities is exponential to that in a lot of other technology. So remembering to always, always continue your personal growth, and then also keeping your staff, giving them all the tools, the time, and the support to continue growing. And what makes a good leader? I know I'm about to wrap up because Trisha's on the screen. I would say let's add to what I was just saying with your professional network and a genuine interest in being curious and learning. As a number of us have shown, meeting people, being interested in what's going on in the industry, what other people are doing, and really learning, building your network. And then if you want to start your leadership journey and you don't really have an idea, you don't necessarily know how to get to the next level, get involved with an organization. It could be GPN, your local chapter. If you are specializing in project management, you do a lot of project management, you can join PMI. There are a number of organizations out there that have a number of things like this webinar right here that are free. Lots of free resources out there. Great ways to learn, start networking, and find opportunities by volunteering and taking on things like being a committee chair or being a chapter officer. You can start learning different leadership skills and practicing them. And then that also gives you something to put on your resume. So you don't have to get hired into a leadership job to get the leadership experience to help you in your career. And I will leave this with you. It's influence. Trisha said that from the very beginning. Leadership is influence. So how can you lead in your current position? Are you a technical or business SME? How do others lead? And what can you cherry pick from the good things that you think others do that you can incorporate for yourself? And then being able to learn to articulate how you add value. So it's that elevator speech. It's that personal, being able to articulate your passion and your value add as a leader. And then thinking about, and I believe maybe Dana had this, your short and long-term plans. So that's it. That's my spiel, and very happy to have had a chance to be here with you guys today.
Thank you, Liz. Give Liz some love, some virtual love. I feel like I picked up on lifelong curiosity is something that you have. I love that you're telling us that's part of even the growth happens over time, right? It's not, you can't get all the degrees at one time. And sometimes it's good to stretch those muscles, and flex them and see where you want to end up. But pivoting, how important is pivoting for a leader? I mean, very critical. So thank you so much. I appreciate your insights, and so happy to have Liz on with us today. Next up, this is definitely last but not least, we have the great Paul Giroux. And he's the Innovation Officer, Innovation Business and Location Intelligence at the Greater Sudbury Industries, I'm sorry, not
Utilities.
industries, utilities. Yes, thank you. All right, happy to have you, Paul. And so I'm going to turn it on over to Paul.
Okay, I gotta take over the screen. Perfect. Okay, I want to get to questions. And so, everybody had a good chance. Am I sharing yet? Let's see, share. Here we go. Sorry. Everybody gave a lot of great tips, so I don't want to repeat everyone. I heard a lot. Carl started off talking a little bit about failures a bit and non-linear. I heard from Dina about painful experiences, and those that know me know I like talking about the angst. And so I'm going to try to rush through it. Trisha, you could stay on and cut me off right at 7 minutes if you want. Okay. So who I am for those that don't know me. There we go. I'm old. I've been in the business for a long time. Web, data, technology, and yes, GIS. Not fairly recently, I got my Master of Science. And then where am I today? As mentioned, I'm the Innovation Officer at Greater Sudbury Utilities, and I lead a very small team. We're a small organization. And we have a data analytics person, an analyst, and a tech. All right. There's my information. My phone number is there. Please don't call in the middle of this panel because it's being recorded. But I want at least one person out there in the audience today to reach out to me. People keep talking about keeping your network warm. That is one of the most valuable lessons I can leave you with today. So I'm going to hammer through this and do death by PowerPoint. This is the journey as one would expect. Carl said linear, right? School, work, you lead eventually, and then you retire. That looks for many of us, you do an undergrad from you should have been in 1990, a master's, become the labeled GIS guy person, become a technical wizard, manage, and then eventually retire, right, in 2030. So the school that's where I started to chase GIS. I took one GIS course in the geography undergraduate program. It was environmental earth science. I was math and computer science adverse. So I worked my way around that, got into master's and got clobbered because the East Coast of Canada's GIS programs, like COGS, for instance, it's like the Harvard of GIS. It is hardcore. It is the pure. It is the math, it's computer science, especially in the 90s, way, 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 way back when I started. So this is like an inflection point for me. So I was chasing GIS right at the start of my, in schooling. And I learned that useful GIS is hardcore, right? I was really clueless. I'd make a map on a desktop. It was far beyond that. And I learned that really quickly. But what happened was, even though it threw me off that typical track, I was given a gift of a career for the first 10 years of my working life. And that gift was the ability to have a career that threw me immediately into becoming a tech wizard. So I got to skip, I got to skip the whole master's and being a GIS person and just gone straight into wizardry, so to speak. And how I landed my very first job in an advanced technology center. And we were prototyping and innovating and doing all sorts of stuff. And I learned to be a jack of all trades. Like I was wiring networks as a geographer. That's weird, right? I was setting up web servers. I was setting up phone systems and firewalls and you name it, even getting Apple Talk working on TCP/IP. I was thrown into that as a geographer without a Google that I could like ask questions and get information back. So you learn really quickly how to get technical and proficient. And then I got to hone my skills in another advanced technology center. So I don't want to go and talk about my whole career, but at heart, I'm a web person. My entire existence has been on the web tier. I am desktop adverse. I hate opening ArcMap. I hate Pro. I like to just get into maybe the catalog piece and get data liberated so we can actually build things. So that's been my life, okay? And I worked in strictly as a web developer, but eventually, right, the gift of being thrown deep into client server, understanding system and design, not just thinking, but doing, and working for two brilliant, like 10 years ahead of their time leaders, really gave me a good start at leveraging my wizardry to get back into GIS. And those that know me know the geo angst. So this is when the angst begins again. So I get into GIS, I start trying to build an enterprise, right? And the angst begins. And so with failure two, a big inflection now is in work. So not doing the web stuff, but doing GIS, is that enterprise compounds failures when organizations can't get out of their own way. Okay. I ran into that. That's a pain point. And so that threw me, starting as a GIS person, threw me into my master's again. Okay. So I was able to go through and finish my master's science using all this experience and angst to study the problem, which built Slim Jim. I got a bunch of credentials. I got enterprise architecture, because really what we do is enterprise architecture, right? But it got me out there. It got me presenting. Nathan had asked a question about like how to get over being an introvert. I'm not, so I can't relate, but I got out there, I presented. And this gift that I got, right, through this whole thing was I really got to study the problem, that I could deal with it, but I was able to help others because we're all in the same boat, right? The geo angst, if we're in GIS, is real. I was able, though, to back up my vision and assert myself. Not enough, but starting to, right? And that was mentioned by, I think, Liz. And then more importantly, I really got my altruistic juices flowing again, like sharing. And that's where I've really been learning. And that's why I think I was invited here. Like, I think I'm the inverse model of leadership. Don't do what I've done, right? Don't listen to my advice. But I have a network, and that's why I'm here, okay? And that also got me the attention to basically lead around the problem. So now I became a leader, okay? So I was leading a small team and learning how to use my people as tools to drive a change. I can't do that well. I don't do it well. I'm not comfortable doing it, right? And that brought the next failure. So very quickly now, again, chasing GIS, right? I learned the status quo can and will defeat any organization-wide change and improvement effort if the top leaders lack the vision, okay? So you can work for leaders that get it, but if the rest of the organization is struggling to understand even what you're saying, or what your sponsor is saying, right? There's a problem. So that was a big inflection point for me, which luckily, again, threw me into my happy place. So I got into innovation. And so I'm in an innovation office right now. It looks like a little Google lab. I had no GIS under me, but I got to drive webifying GIS, get it off desktop, get it up there so we can start really re-engineering process and drive change, right? So the gift of those failures, again, in the career led me to leadership where I was leading enterprise. Anybody who's chasing enterprise is a leader, okay? You don't have to have staff under you. You're leading the organization somewhere, right? And I had to work for a forward-thinking mentor again. This mentor says I get to chase butterflies as an innovation officer, especially one with ADD. This is something I need to do, is just kind of wander around and think. And I got to be creative again. And like Carl had mentioned, I'm neurodivergent. So I got to use those juices a bit to really start driving enterprise-wide change. But because I'm proficient in so many things, including GIS, I've inherited the GIS team. So like Liz, I lead analytics, business, location intelligence, right? In the day-to-day, that team. But because I'm chasing GIS again, guess what? The angst is back. Right. So for the last 3 years, the angst has been building. Trish is there, so I'm almost done. And so this track into innovation manager, basically, I'm a manager, right? Not a leader anymore, I don't think. I'm managing, which is quite different. Is leading to the next major, not failure. I think it's going to be something that's going to be creative tension that's going to drive a major modernization effort here at work. And so before retirement, I think there will be a legacy where I get an organization to enterprise, which is going to be really exciting. So, wow, lots of words. Those that know me know I hate slides. So the bonus in here, this is what everybody said. I'll leave it on here for people to download, right? But basically UX is everything's a bonus. Enough with the slides. To finish it off, this thing, I love this diagram, okay? And I had a highly political version of this. Trisha, you're going to be glad I left it off. I showed the opposite of this, right? On like dishonest and backwards thinking and incompetent and those kind of things, right? But it kind of brings out too much about Peter principle and Dunning-Kruger and stuff. So this here, this is what we should be, right? These are the people we need to surround ourselves with and learn from. And for me, my goal is to continue to improve because I'm technical. Technical people often hate managing. I like to lead. I like to build solutions, but I struggle with leading my team and they know that. So I have to work harder at filling my gaps to be more inspiring with my team, be more dependable. Like hopefully I'll finish one project in my life before I retire and get more straightforward on things, right? And being time crunched, Trisha helps me stay as straightforward as possible. But more importantly, I have cognitive bias because of my technical background. I expect everyone to be able to figure stuff out quickly and be able to build solutions quickly too, right? So I have to change this and be a little bit more fair to be a better mentor to everyone. So that's it. I think I made it in time for once in my life. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Paul. Let's give Paul some love, some virtual love. I heard you talk about leaders that are working ahead of their time. How marvelous is that to work with someone who is ahead of their time? I loved your comments about freshening your network. Where do you freshen your network? At some place called Geospatial Professional Networks, maybe? All right, we're in the right place. That's awesome. But you're a wizard. You're filling the gaps. I love that. You know, so many people want to work on what they're good at. Liz even talked about this, right? She took all the hard stuff. You took the hard jobs. You took the ones no one raised their hand. That is absolutely doing the hard things and doing them well. So keeping, the wizard, I always love the word wizard. So
It's funny when I was going to put a picture of Tim Nolan when he has his costume that he's in. I'm like, that's what a wizard looks like to me. So, but anyways, he's on the line today. So
yes. All right. Now we're going to move into let me share my screen here so we all know what's going on, including me. All right. Now we're moving into the question portion of our webinar, what everyone's been waiting for, even the panelists more specifically. So hopefully you had some questions that you threw into the Q&A or the chat. I'm going to ask Danielle to help us out with that.
Okay. So the questions are in the Q&A primarily. I've been watching chat and it's been more of just chat and definitely a lot of positive feedback. What I will do is read the question aloud. And then once we've answered it, I will click on answer live so it will move over and we'll just keep the Q&A box less cluttered if that works for everybody.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Our first question comes from Daniel Bartlett. Are there dates, times for the entire series yet? How will we get notified?
Good news. There are not fixed times yet. So to be honest, this is something that came out of, I don't know if anybody saw the governance series from last year, but this is kind of in the footsteps of the governance series. And many of us, specifically Dina and Isabella, came to me and asked to do this panel of leaders and tell the story and their journey. And so we thought maybe we should just do a series of this. So stay tuned. They're going to come. Hopefully we'll do one more this year and then try to squeeze in a couple more next year. So it takes a lot to get everyone's schedule aligned and, get all the right people in the right seats on the bus. So thanks for asking though, and stay tuned.
There is a question in the chat and it says, how does one become a GISP?
And okay, Paul wants to go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, one of my employees just did this. So when I did it, I was lucky enough. And the reason why I did it is I don't like exams. So I got in before the exam track. But on the current track is you put in an application, right? Plus there's an exam process. So it's kind of a two-stager. The exam process, there is a lot of help for that too. And so Wendy had posted the link, everything's on there. For me personally, one quick note was that I became a GISP because of the ethics and code of conduct, right? I wanted to be able to sign something and adhere to that, and then have my employees do the same.
Anybody else? Okay, go ahead, Wilma.
I want to add to that. One component is the volunteer component. And I think doing the volunteering fits perfectly in all the leadership stories that we've heard. I mean, you probably heard the word volunteer quite a bit. So I would leverage that. Volunteer.
Liz?
Yeah, I would also say there was another similar question that I saw in the Q&A with regard to a number of people being other designations also, or maybe they're project managers. Should you get your PMP first? Should you get your GISP first? And I think it really depends on what is going to give you the advantage. Specifically, I put off the GISP for years because I too did not want to sit for the exam. And I didn't have the years of experience so early enough, because I came to GIS later in my career, that I couldn't get grandfathered in to the no exam, right? By the time I had enough experience, the exam was then required. So I put it off for many years. But don't be intimidated by it. If you study and if you have been a practitioner, you can pass that exam. It sounds way more scary than it actually is. And as far as which one to get first, I would say what matters most in the industry where you are. What is going to give you the most credibility? What is going to add the most value in your path? And you can do both, right? Just do one and then do the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say the GISP, I just got a new job 7 months ago. It was required for this job to have a GISP. So I would say if you're going to switch jobs, I think that might be a good one to put in first, or if you're looking for a new job, it'd be great to have on a resume. And some jobs, it is required. The PMP can wait, but also figure out if you want to be a project manager, because just because there's some letters behind your name, you might go through the training and realize that's not really something I want to be. So just some food for thought. Anybody else? I would like to mention the PEC, the Professional Education Committee, has offered webinars at some of the GIS Pro the conferences, and we actually are getting ready, working on a GISP on-demand course. And we're looking for people who would like to teach a module or put a module together. The PEC is working on this right now. So if you think you're interested, we'd love to have you volunteer to possibly do a module for us. But the idea is that we want to have a class on demand so that people who want to get their GISP can do at their pace at any time. All right, next question.
We have a few in the chat, so I want to catch those before it scrolls too quickly. This one says, what is the biggest challenge to find a job from academic to industry sector?
Who would like to take that? Liz.
I can say this a little bit. So after I was finishing up my MBA, I did some adjunct teaching at my alma mater, GIS in the business school. And working with the academics that I had the privilege to work with, I would say there's so much theoretical understanding and not maybe necessarily quite the level of maybe business acumen or technical acumen for an industry. So making that transition really is how you can translate and articulate your skill set and what you bring to the table. So being able to show the value or speak to how research in a certain area or understanding of a certain topic, maybe having a portfolio of example work that you've done for academia, but being able to show that in the context of the particular industry or company that you're trying to work for. If you have the opportunity to put together an ArcGIS story map portfolio, use the technology to showcase yourself. Do your resume. I mean, obviously, we all need our standard resume or CV, but then put together something that is a portfolio of the work you've done that you can then showcase. And that will help you transition into the business world.
If okay, Tricia, I'll add to what Liz said. I would also, I've seen a lot of resumes through the years that have the academia focus, an academia CV versus industry. I would take a look at your own resume with fresh eyes, like Liz shared, and sometimes it's reordering things, sometimes it's de-emphasizing things like papers or moving those to the end. And academic credentials are very important, but like Liz said, I think it's important to show that you can be practical. You don't want to be perceived as too theoretical to do the job.
I know I've seen internships, if you can. And if you can't, if you take up unpaid internship, that is something that I had someone do, and they ended up getting a job, locally. And so I have to say that it's hard because they want to put the cart before the horse. But you think, I get out of college, I got this great degree, but everybody's like, do you have experience? So it's a tough one, but I think internships are definitely a good key, is on top of everything else that everyone else suggested. So anybody, Wilma, did you have anything?
You make a good point about internships. In my experience, we've had a couple of interns, two of them unpaid, one paid. The unpaid ones, we basically just want to pay them in experience and variety and mentorship. The paid ones, actually, we had two of those. They're just on a project, and it's more of a job than an internship. So the two that volunteered, they got way more out of their internship. And one of them is actually sitting behind me working right now. So I would definitely not just poo-poo unpaid internships. And I think you don't even have to go apply for an internship or look online to look for one. The two great ones that we had, and the one that's then still here, they just showed up in my office. And they just volunteered. They're like, hi, I'm this person. I want to get experience. Can I be part of your team for the summer? It's like, okay, just do it. Go out there and just say, I want to work for free. I want to learn.
Thank you. Danielle, next question.
Okay. So I'm gonna kind of combine two of them just because I want to make sure that we get as many as possible. This one says, what are the best ways to showcase your leadership experience when applying to a GIS team lead position? And then, has everyone's career path always included GIS? I've noticed that for my mid-career path, I've always had to introduce it to the certain industry. Example, fire deputy, emergency management, EHS, EM, consulting, nonprofit fundraising. How much of your careers have included volunteer work? And I know you just talked about the internships, but I thought that was a good segue in this question.
Yeah, it does. Paul, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll be brief. Like I had talked about it. I ended up being a web developer for 10 years. So it wasn't always including GIS. And then for volunteer work, I'll be honest, I didn't do any. No. But maybe someone else can.
Okay, who wants to go next? Wilma?
I think sometimes you might just be in a job or an organization where you're not given like a leadership role in the sense of now you are managing an employee. But seek out those opportunities to take the lead in a project. And so when you're looking for another job, perhaps you have not, been a manager of a person, but you can show, okay, I pulled this project together, and there were all those stakeholders. I had to convince them. I had to get everybody working together, especially if it included, I volunteered, I went out in the community and organized this. I think that goes a long way. So I would say even if you don't have people working for you right now, or your organization is not open for it, you can still get those leadership opportunities, and they count.
Anyone else? I will say that I volunteer for a little cemetery near us and built a cemetery GIS and built their website. And I enjoyed it. It was really great, fulfilling. Yeah, there's a lot of places we can volunteer. All right, next question.
I've been trying to achieve my GISP like for eternity. Sat for several exams and still getting the regrets. I even felt like giving up, but I really needed this. That was more just a comment, but I thought that was a great comment. Let's see.
Oh,
What do I
Wilma.
really need to do? It's pivotal to me.
Okay,
Um,
go ahead,
so,
Wilma.
oh yeah, so I have quite a few younger GIS analysts on my team now. And they decided to start a study group studying together for the GISB. So perhaps the person who commented on that, I don't know if you've tried that, but find some other folks that are in a similar position and team up practicing. Might be more fun as well. And I would say try again. You only have to pass once. So eventually you will.
This question is for Isabella. How do you use the GIS knowledge background to run a technology department, given tech is broader than GIS? Any recommendations on a reading list?
So Isabella joined via phone. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. She might. Okay.
Yeah, and Carl had to leave. He was joining the meeting that Megan was running. Does
Okay.
anybody else want to answer this question or take a stab at it? Dina?
Hey, I can take a stab real quickly. A number of individuals who have GIS leadership, sometimes that expands into other technology topics. In other words, look at Wilma. She's now Chief Data Officer. You do a great job in GIS. Sometimes it does expand your role. And Liz, others, we know a lot of people who have done such an amazing job with GIS, particularly those advanced analytics, such that it parlays into others. I go back to how you think. If you're known as a critical thinker, if you're known as someone who can apply right brain, left brain creative solutions, I think that can parlay itself into a much broader role. But I think people are people. The way you work and lead technology teams is the same way that you would certainly lead GIS teams. The work itself may be different. And as much as possible, bring it all together. Maybe once a month or once a quarter, bring all aspects and put maybe IT groups or technology web development groups together with GIS. You can certainly learn from each other.
Yeah, that's that. What I'm seeing a lot with my peers is, right, because we're GIS people, right, we're way beyond that. We're data people, right? We're ETL people, we're data mart people, we know the web tier, we know platforms, we know the cloud. So throw SharePoint at us, that's easy, right? And so a lot of my peers I'm seeing getting kicked up into higher and higher positions. They're taking GIS, they're broadening to data, right? One in Hamilton, for instance, Matt has gone up and also taking on knowledge management. And so the reason being is, even though we're pigeonholed as the GIS people, we're actually the ones doing far more with data than your IT division does, right? They just stand up technologies, make sure SQL is working, give the keys to systems to the business owners, go off to the next thing. We're the ones that are dealing with the massive data, integration of that data, the IT, OT integration of this stuff. So I'm saying that there's, you know, to answer your question about that, it's we are already far beyond GIS. So it's just a matter of like getting yourself out of that, being the label. That's why I had quotes on my thing. You're not the GIS person. You're way beyond that already, just in the nature of what.
Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, I would like to add to that in enterprise GIS, whether you're using Esri or whether you're using open source, if you, like Paul just said, if you look at a Venn diagram of what GIS is, it is being a DBA. It is being an enterprise administrator. It is being a developer or a data engineer to ETL to hook up to other systems, other business systems. You're pulling data feeds in. You may be pushing data feeds out. You're integrating things. There's a component of geospatial data science. There's data analytics. And then there's, of course, the visualization, the beautiful cartographic, you know, end products that you're producing. But then also you're being a business systems analyst because you're taking all the requirements and understanding the business and technical needs. You're being a project manager because you're understanding the stakeholders and the deadlines and deliverables. So when you take all of these skills, you don't necessarily have to be an expert in every piece of IT to move into being an IT leader, because the understanding is if you can do all of these things, then you know you are going to have group leaders or division leaders that are those technical SMEs in their given areas that you're going to be working with. So you're going to have an entire group of you know, what is it? The meeting of the minds, right? You have the power in the knowledge of the group.
Yeah, no, and to add to that, finally, is as soon as you're recognized as the strategist and the architect, because that's what we're doing. All those things you and I just said put together, and the organization sees, oh, these people are the most strategic people I've ever met, right? And they understand all of our core business because they're in our data and they're tickling our data across all processes. They don't care whose silo it's in. That's where it really helps with everything, is that recognition of being a strategist and an architect. That's the hard part, I think, for me. I still struggle with that, is getting that level of attention.
And I'll throw in a book if you want to read. If you haven't read Good to Great by Jim Collins and you're trying to build a team, I think that's always a good book to read. If you have if anybody has other suggestions, maybe throw them in the chat. I think we have time for one more question.
We've got
Danielle?
about 8 minutes, so we do have a few questions and we'll do as
Okay.
many as we can.
I do have I have some ending slides that I want to remind people of
okay.
some webinars coming up and some other things that GPN is up to.
Okay. So we'll do one last question then. Where should leaders invest most of their time? Building tech or management skills?
Wilma?
I would say empowering others to work towards a vision. So team. So for me, I spent an hour a week that I set aside for each of my team members here. And then I do have, you know, some of them are contractors, at least half an hour every other week. But the ones that are core here, hour a week. And sometimes it's a matter of, I always start my meetings with, how are you? What's on your mind? And then they can take it where they want. Maybe there's not much on their mind and they're busy and it's a 5-minute meeting. And sometimes just we brainstorm about things, or it seems to work well.
I think it's both, you know, the answer, and Paul put this in the chat, both. You have to invest your time doing both. You have to continue to, even if you don't technically know how to do all of the things that are in technology, all the new stuff. But being abreast of those capabilities, staying up to speed on, you know, what's happening, how people are leveraging GIS, the new technology that's coming out, and really understanding, and this is a, overused phrase, but the art of the possible, to then incorporate like which pieces of it really make sense for your organization so that you can strategically plan for it. But it also means strategically planning the individual development of all of your staff, sitting with them and understanding like you're going to have corporate needs where you need everybody to know, Python, right? ArcPy. You're going to need everybody to know how to use the desktop software. But then you may have somebody who has a particular interest in one aspect of GIS, and there's something coming up on the evolution of technology. So working with them individually to say, okay, well, let's have you go to that session at the conference, or let's have you take a class on that and then come back and teach us what you learned, and come back and tell us how you think we could add value by doing that. So I think that it really is both, but it's really empowering your team to grow and spending the time with them to make sure that they know you're in their corner.
I would add to that, again, back to knowing yourself well. If you have the proclivity to stay on top of, if you're technical minded, you're still interested, you're going to stay on top of that naturally. You need to focus on your managerial skills. If you're too far in the managerial skills, you need to be very deliberate, like Liz said, on staying on top of emerging technology. And both of them said it well, empowering your team.
All right. I think that's the last question. So how about give, as the audience, you were fabulous today. Please give yourself some love, some virtual love. We're so happy that you could be with us. And we had some questions kind of back in the background, just in case you didn't come up with any. But I definitely want to make sure you're aware that the Excellent in GIS webinars are coming up. So you definitely want to keep an eye out for the City of Rockwell, Texas. They have the restaurant inspection scores dashboard. That's February 28th. Then we have the City of Frisco. Looks like Texas is showing up for sure in excellence in GIS. They have the SAFER situation awareness for emergency response. And then King County, Washington, that's April 25th. You'll definitely want to catch them. They were recognized both as exemplary system and government award categories in 2024 and 2023. And if these are not on your calendar, this is the time to put them on it. These programs that are coming up, where you have the GIS leadership, and it seems like you can see Liz there, right? Liz is teaching that. So City of Chicago, Illinois, and that's June 16th through the 20th. We'll hope to see you all in Denver, Colorado for the GIS Pro in the Rockies. That is October 6th through the 9th. And then we have the Advanced GIS Leadership Academy, which is fairly new, in New Orleans, Louisiana, November 3rd through the 7th. And we'll wrap up the year in Savannah, Georgia, the GIS Leadership Academy, December 8th through the 12th. If you have some training dollars, that's a hint. That's a good place to use them, especially in December. Again, it's been fabulous with spending the afternoon with you all. You've been fantastic audience. Where do you go to network, and where do you go to learn about leaders? You go to the Geospatial Professional Network. We're so happy to that you joined us today. Everybody have a great rest of your, let's give the panelists another round of applause virtually. They were fabulous. And stay tuned. We will have another webinar coming to you soon in the leadership series. And everyone have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining us.